I'd like to call to order the City of North Ridgeville Planning Commission meeting for May 14th, 2024. Madam Secretary, please call roll.
Members of the board, Ali,
Present.
Grotman,
Present.
Schuman,
Here.
Abens,
Here.
Smolik,
Here.
members of the administration, Assistant Law Director Morgan, Planning and Development Director Lieber, City Engineer Evanson.
Everyone, please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag, United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Has all the commission members had a chance to review the minutes from our April 9th, 2024 meeting? Is there any corrections at this time? Hearing none, those minutes shall stand. We have some correspondence brought to the commission today. Director Lieber, do you want to explain those real quick for us?
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Chair. We approved administratively a new storage building and dumpster enclosure for Providence Square for Tacos del Pueblo. There is an administrative approval. Harvest Ridge, since Planning Commission approved their project last year, needed to add additional parking to accommodate their need. VFW we had approved also last year a pavilion behind the existing building that was enclosed, but I think due to maybe cost issues, they modified that into more of just a canopy structure, so that was approved. And then last, Pulp Juice is coming to town, and we approved their new business certificate.
Okay, and then we have some other planning updates.
Sure. Thank you. So our master plan was adopted by council unanimously on April 15th, so that resolution becomes effective tomorrow, and that plan goes into effect. It's currently on our website. We've used that steering committee to form an implementation committee, and we will be meeting at some point in the next couple months to identify some priorities and come up with a strategy for how to move forward. Some of the things in the master plan are already happening. We're also in the process of our active transportation plan. We have a steering committee meeting this Thursday at 10 a.m. here. The consultant's going to be giving us a rundown of the results of the community input survey that we ran back in March and April. We got a lot of good participation in that, and they have some draft alternatives for us to look at. Tentatively, we have our next public meeting on Thursday, July 11th. It will be at the Senior Center in the evening. I don't have the exact time yet, but we're coming up with ways to get people to turn out to our second meeting, more so than the first, including bribery with food. So hopefully that will be successful. We'll get some more people coming on out. Third, our zoning code audit and subdivision regulation diagnosis process is ongoing. We are preparing a community survey that should be ready to launch this coming Monday. So we want to get input from the community as to what their priorities are with our zoning code update. And we're using a lot of pictures that allow people to use kind of visual cues to show us kinds of development and design that they like and those that they less prefer. So we'll keep that open for about a month, and we'll use all of our channels to promote it, but we'll be sending that to the commission, so if you could encourage participation, that would be great. And I also just want to touch on, I was pleased that the entire commission was able to go to the APA Cleveland Planning and Zoning Workshop. Maybe not every session is applicable to things you do in your job here, but hopefully you found a couple nuggets interesting and to kind of get an idea of what's going on in the region in the realm of planning. So thank you all for showing up and your attention. Appreciate it.
Yeah, I thought it was very beneficial. Thank you for the city for providing that for us. All right, Madam Secretary, please read the first application.
PPZ 2024-0257 Elite K9 31740 Cook Road, PPN 07-00-004-110-038. Applicant Heller Carpentry and Handyman LLC, 227 Main Street, Apartment 327, Westlake, Ohio 44145. Owner Chuck Stello, 31684 Cook Road, North Ridgeville, Ohio 44039. Proposal consists of constructing an addition to existing building for grooming facility, property zone B3 Highway Commercial District.
Okay, Director Lieber, findings of fact.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. In your packet, you have our staff review bulletin and also staff reports that provide a little bit of background. So this has been a long-term business in our community that's been added on to over the years. This particular project, the applicant's proposing 1,130 square foot addition to the rear of the kennel and training building in order to provide dog grooming services. Animal grooming is a permitted use in this district. It's the B3 Highway Commercial District. The building is going to the addition is going to maintain the existing side setback from the west property line. The architectural plans indicate that the addition will have vinyl siding, vinyl windows, and asphalt shingles. I know we had discussed in our staff review meeting that the plans that were submitted, the plans have changed a little bit in terms of some existing siding that was to remain might be replaced and the colors weren't indicated. So we had requested that those be clarified, but have not received those at this point. In terms of site improvements, the existing fencing to the east of the current building was removed, and there's now, a parking lot in that location that's been striped in. Parking for that business, it's unique because it straddles both the commercial property and the residential property to the east. So in last year, the applicant had made application to the BZA in regards to the drive aisle for that bank of parking. Our code requires a minimum of 24 feet between 90-degree angle spaces, and the applicant was desiring 21 feet. So they did get a variance for that drive aisle spacing. We had pointed out in the staff review meeting that the architectural prints showed an 18-foot drive aisle and that those dimensions needed to be revisited. So they did provide an engineering plot plan subsequent to those architectural site plans that show 21-foot drive aisle, but the rest of the dimensions aren't included. So I don't know if they took away from the parking spaces to make the 21 or what those other dimensions were. So I had requested some additional information on that engineer site plan that we have yet to receive. Also, the fire department access was requested to provide some connectivity from that commercial parking lot especially because it's tight. If any of their equipment comes in, they don't have a way of turning around and pulling back out. So the idea would be to be able to loop behind the house to the east in order to be able to then pull back out onto the street. So that access shows up on the survey plot plan, but not on the architectural site plan. The architectural site plan shows notes indicating site lighting by others. According to the applicant, there's no site lighting proposed at this time, so that note should go. Generally, there's some inconsistencies between the original submittal with the architectural site plan and the elevations, with also what we understood from the applicant in our staff review meeting might be some changes, and then also the subsequent engineering plot plan. So those things all need to come into line because right now it's not a complete detailed package where you can match one sheet to another. So that concludes my report. Thank you.
Okay, city engineer, do you have any comments in regards to this project?
Mr. Chair, just to add to what Ms. Weaver has already indicated, I know in our staff review meeting, we talked about the addition of water quality measures, which they have provided for, to treat the addition, the building addition, in its proposed condition. We also talked about access, as Ms. Weaver had mentioned. There was also a mention of fire protection as far as fire hydrant accessibility. And it was noted that the 350 feet was provided, but I will say that's pretty tight. That's our absolute maximum. So I haven't had a chance to confirm if they are Assistant Fire Chief, if he's amenable to the dimensions shown there, the offset shown there. And additionally, I also looked at the approved 2021 parking lot approved plan, and it does identify some dimensions that don't exactly correspond with what we have on our current plot plan. So again, I think to Ms. Lieber's point, we would like to see a blow up, a more detailed site plan with some of those dimensions outlined for the.
You're speaking of the 21-foot?
Right,
that area?
With the offset from the building and
Okay,
on a revised site plan, I think we'll provide that information.
I can do that.
Is that all the questions and comments from administration?
Oh, I'm sorry, I had one more.
Sure, go ahead.
I wanted to know, inquire with the applicant what the intent was for the area behind the, access drive that's being provided for the emergency services. This was the first time I had seen a wetland, identification on a plot plan, so I wasn't sure if there was future improvement plan for that area. Did you went so far as to do a delineation of the?
So what we have done so far
Hey,
is,
Sir, real quick, could you state your name and
sorry.
address for the
yes,
record?
Charles A. Stella, 31684 Cook Road, North Ridgeville, Ohio, 44039.
Okay, I assume that's it for administration rests? All right.
Sorry.
Go, now you could fill us a little bit in on some of the questions and comments in administration and tell us a little bit more about your project.
As to your last question, we are hoping to expand at some point in the future. There was a permit taken out for the wetlands that was transferred to me. It was taken out by someone else, the previous owner. And I was informed that I could use that permit and just pay the balance. So it saved me considerable amount of money to go ahead and finish the permit and actually put the access in through the wetlands. So right now, my goal is to get the drain, the bridge, and the road up through to the end of the wetlands, which is about 60 feet from the creek, 50, 60 feet. So that's all the improvement that I will be doing so far on that part of the land. So behind the access road, there would just be the bridge that we're looking to do.
So I guess, let's talk the wetland, so wetland delineation was done, and someone applied for a nationwide permit, now you're
Correct.
piggybacking off of that because the
No, I'm
disturbance-
continuing that only because it was already paid for, a large portion of it was already paid for, but it was never completed. He sold the property. So I took over the permit and paid the balance on it. So I was granted access to the wetlands. So the goal is to just finish through the wetlands before the permit expires.
Through the Corps or through the Ohio EPA?
I believe it's the core. I believe it's the core.
Sorry, all right, go on.
Yep. So I don't have any plans on building back there currently. The idea was, and why we went back and forth last year was, we were going to build back there, but it just wasn't cost effective. Just to develop all that and do that, I don't have that kind of funds. So we now decided that we were going to put the addition on the back of the building. And so that's kind of where we're at now.
Mr. Chair, if I could,
Go ahead.
can you just clarify, Mr. Stella, you mentioned a bridge behind the access, and I'm just looking at the plot plan now, and I just don't see any proposed access. Is that,
There's a clearing back there, but there's no bridge or anything at this point. It's going to be, that's, before the permit expires, we will,
but you don't want that as part of this approval?
I do not.
Okay.
I do not.
Just to be sure, just to be clear. Thank you.
So I guess there's a lot of discussion. So what is this development plan actually for? Is this for just the addition?
Just for yes, for the addition, but the road that they want me to put in, the fire access, that's all part of the addition. I have to do that to get the addition in.
So, I guess, there was some meetings with the staff ahead of time in regards, and I guess where are the updated drawings? Because this development plan is, it's not complete.
I received from the architect, or from the surveyor, I received a set of drawings that I had emailed over to the office. If you don't have them, I can certainly provide them for you. That would be our new plot plan, and what shows the parking area and all that.
So what happens is, we review a development plan. That should have all aspects. It should have your parking, your buildings, all that goes into our decision-making. So that way we make sure that it's cohesive with the code and the surrounding area. It just seems like that there's pieces missing.
Which pieces?
Well, like this whole access drive, fire protection. I mean, there's a lot of, like, fire protection.
The access road is in the drawing. The fire access, they required a 15-foot drive behind my home, which is in that plot plan. And that goes from my driveway, my personal driveway, over to the parking lot, around behind the house.
Mr. Chair?
No. Yeah, I'm just looking at your, I guess, your site plan. So, what about this parking lot? I know there was some corrections on the aisleway.
Yeah, the architect put that in there, but she didn't have accurate measurements. We had Rafter come out and put in the parking lot, or survey the parking lot before we built it. We got a variance on that for the footage that it was, which was 21 feet. It is 21 feet. It's not 18. I don't know why the architect put that in there, but I did have John from Rafter come out physically and measure that with me. And I think that's reflected in this. If you don't have it, I do have it for you.
Okay.
So it is 21 feet.
Do you have any other further questions or comments?
I don't believe so.
Okay. I'm going to open it up to the general audience. Does anybody have any questions or comments in regards to this application? Hearing none, the public question comment session is over. I'm going to open it up to the commission. Does any of the commission members have any questions or comments in regards to this development plan?
Mr. Chairman?
Go ahead.
Actually, I have a question for the director. Would it be appropriate for us to recommend this with all of these things that you mentioned, being all of this being brought up to date and all the information being given to you, and engineering and fire?
I generally think that there's a lack of coordination between the architectural prints, the engineering plot plan, and just comments that were made during staff review, to the point, I'm not sure if you issued approval what you are approving.
Okay.
For example, I mean, I do think that this engineer plot plan is a step forward and that has more detail on it from an engineering standpoint, but the only parking lot dimension is the aisle width. That is literally the only number on this print, is that 21-foot drive aisle. So then where do we go for the rest of the dimensions to see how the spaces and the widths and the depths and the air, we need it all on one piece of paper, because otherwise, like, do I refer to the architectural print for the other numbers? And I think we'd like just to see it in one spot. And then there was some indication, I think that you would have seen in your staff review meeting in my report, that some of the architectural elevation, there are going to be different colors or materials than what was specified, and that I'd also requested colors be provided, which haven't. So there's just, I think, a little bit of a lack of coordination that I would like to get resolved.
Perhaps it would be to your benefit to take this back and bring it back again with everything, all of the I's dotted and T's crossed.
Mr. Chairman,
Go ahead.
if there is, say, a list that could be made of what you still need to see, I think that would be helpful for the applicant to have. But I would caution against voting for something or against without being very clear yourself of
Right.
what it is.
Are we talking about the colors of the building? Is that one of the sticking
That sounds
points?
like that's one of the things.
You had indicated that on the elevation, that the new portion was to match the existing, but then in the meeting, you said it wasn't going to match the existing. And then some of the siding you said was to remain, you were going to replace, including a window. And we had asked for all those notes to be updated on that elevation, but we haven't received anything back that shows all what's to be updated, what's new, what will match, and what that will look like.
Well, it's all, I mean, the only thing that's changing is the vinyl siding, and it's just a different color. It's a shade of different green because of the fading. So it's not actually any different. The roofing colors are gonna be the same. And I can provide those actual colors from the manufacturer. I did think that the architect did put that in there, that it was to match existing. The only difference between what's existing and what I'm putting on is the existing is pretty faded. It's a green, but it's a faded green.
And I could have misunderstood from our staff review meeting, but my understanding was that there were things on the architectural print that needed to be updated because they weren't accurate. That was my understanding.
I think
at one
originally,
point.
I think you're right. I think that she didn't put match existing, which is, the shingles are all gonna match existing shingles. The only thing was the siding, I couldn't get that same siding anymore. So it's still gonna be a pale green siding, but I can definitely designate that. As far as the parking lot goes, the issue is the width of it, and it's 21 feet from front to back. So I don't know what other dimensions that, I have to say, it's hard to read this plot plan. I don't really understand all of it. But I think he has the parking lot.
I don't understand either, and I do this for a living. That's part of what the commission's issue is right now.
Okay.
I mean, there's so much stuff, truly, honestly, I have no idea what you're proposing. No idea. And so it's gonna be difficult for me to make a vote on it when there's so much inconsistencies between the pages.
As in, what inconsistencies? It's 21
I mean,
feet
we-
wide.
well-
I mean, the driveway is the concern, right?
Well,
I mean, that's the issue.
it's not that. There's all this other stuff. I mean, architectural, fire protection. We've been
I
talking
don't,
about it.
which fire protection are we talking about? What kind of fire protection?
Well, the hydrant for one thing.
Well, doesn't the fire department have to tell me whether I can do that or not? I'm within the 300 feet, but I think the fire department has to make the call on that, whether I have to put a fire hydrant in or not.
Well, I don't even know where the fire hydrant's shown up on the plan. So
The fire hydrant's right.
I'm just saying. It might be beneficial for you to regroup and maybe possibly come back. It's up to you.
Okay. I guess I don't understand what more clarification that you need. I paid $15,000 for plot plans and engineered drawings, and if there's inconsistencies, it's the color of the siding, right? I mean, the driveway is 21 feet, which is what I got a variance for last year, which actually is 21 feet. The fire hydrant is the only thing, and I was told that the city fire department has to make that call. So if I can make that call, I'll say I don't need a fire hydrant, but I don't think I can make that call. So I'm happy to come back. I mean, I want to do it right. I always have. I've been in the city for 40-some years, and I've run a business in the city for 30 years, and I always do things the way they're supposed to be done, but I'm not sure about the inconsistencies other than maybe some siding colors.
There's the site plan is a wreck. It needs some help.
Okay, I would need some specifics on that. I'll have to go back to the surveyor and tell him that it's a wreck, because I'm not sure what you mean.
Okay. Does any of the other commission members have any questions or comments?
Mr. Chair,
Go ahead.
I have to admit, I'm looking at this plot plan, and I'm having a difficult time deciphering it. I have to admit, if I had to vote today, I couldn't be positive on it. I'm just having a difficult time reading this, and I do read blueprints very well. This one here, it's challenging.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman.
Go ahead.
Mr. Stella, we really don't want to hold your business up. We really don't. It just be real easy for us if we had everything in front of us. So if you could, I'm sure you could reschedule for the next meeting, maybe? Would that be possible?
Well, the applicant, if he so chooses, could table it if that's what his decision is. Otherwise, if he wants to keep the development plan, then we have to make a vote on it. But he is more than willing to pull it out of the commission tonight.
Yeah, I want to get clarification. I haven't heard on whether my fire hydrants are within the range. I don't know who makes that call. Isn't it the fire department who makes that call?
Yes, it would be ultimately, well, fire and engineering, yes.
Okay, well, nobody's made that call, so I
Mr. Chair, if I
Go
could.
ahead.
sure.
So, Mr. Stella, you are definitely, you're in the right direction. I think we just need a little more detail.
Okay.
You know, as it's already been mentioned, it's just a cluster on this plot plan. So if we could blow it up, you know, to a bigger scale, I think you could provide a little bit more detail. I'm sure
can do
Raptor
that.
would be able to help you with that. The fire hydrant, the need of another fire hydrant is in the hands of the assistant fire chief. So I tried to reach out to him today, but wasn't able to make a connection. So we'll determine if that's amenable with him. Like I said, the 350 feet is a maximum for us. But I think we're
Is
saying
it
you're in the
300 or 350?
well 350. The ordinance reads 300, but it allows up to 350 as the hose lies. So, you know, I don't know if this is as the hose lies. So,
Well, as the hose lies, it'd be 321 foot 6 inches. I did physically measure that myself because I wasn't sure, and it's 321.6 inches. That was the question, was how the hose lies or the radius.
right,
And so if it's by the hose lies, I'm within
no.
that. But again, I still need that from the city.
Right, we need that confirmation. But I think in general, we just need a larger plot plan to a
Okay.
larger scale.
Okay.
Blowing up especially the addition area and the parking lot area. And I think you're almost there.
Okay. I will go back to the drawing board and get clarification.
And
Thank
Mr.
you, folks.
So just to make sure, so the applicant is wishing to table it to the next meeting?
Correct.
Okay. I guess this would be, do we still have to make a motion to table? Okay. I would. Go ahead.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion that we table, this is PPZ 2024-0257.
Do I, okay. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, Madam Secretary, please call roll.
Ali,
Yes.
Brotman,
Yes.
Schuman,
Yes.
Havens,
Yes.
Smolik,
Yes.
motion carried unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Madam Secretary, please read the next application.
PPZ 2024-0260, Aaron A. Russ, 35782 Center Ridge Road, PPN 07-00-201-101-068, applicant Kevin Urick, KMU Trucking and Excavating, 4436 Center Road, Avon, Ohio 44011. Proposal consists of constructing a 9,000 square foot building, parking and landscape materials storage. Property zone B3 Highway Commercial District and R1 Residence District.
Director Lieber, findings of fact?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I know there's two separate items related to this application on your agenda, and I was going to just discuss them both as they're related, if that's okay with you.
For the record, should we just read the third application
Sure.
for the record?
Second application is PPZ 2024-0261, Aaron A. Russ, 35782 Center Ridge Road, PPN 07-00-201-101-068, applicant Kevin Urick, KMU Trucking and Excavating, 4436 Center Road, Avon, Ohio 44011. Proposal consists of rezoning the portion of property zoned R1 Residence District to B3 Highway Commercial District.
Okay, all right, thank
All
you.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Director Lieber.
Mr. Chair, by way of background, the applicant recently purchased this property for his landscaping company and is proposing to construct a 9,000 square foot metal building, parking, and other site improvements for his business. The property is currently split zoned, so the front 500-foot deep portion of the property is zoned B3, Highway Commercial District, and the rear zoned R1 Residence District. So this split zoning exists on the neighboring properties to east and west. You can, if you were to look at a zoning map, you could kind of see that it just follows the runs parallel to Center Ridge Road at a depth of about 500 feet. The applicant has proposed a rezoning of that residential portion to B3 so that the entire lot might be used for business purpose. So first, I think it makes sense just to talk about the rezoning portion first and before the development plan. So, as we discussed in our master plan process, that split zoning can be a barrier to efficient development, especially when you have these scenarios where frontage is zoned commercial and the rear property is zoned residential. So keep in mind that the B3 district permits no residential uses, none. You can't build a house or apartments or anything in the B3 district. And the R1 district permits no business uses. So aside from like a church or a school, there's no business uses. So these two uses are inherently incompatible on the same parcel. It's really unreasonable to think that the rear portion of the property would ever be developed for a residential use, where then the only access would be through that commercial portion, because there's just no other road it would abut. The residentially zoned portion of the lot, in effect, just becomes an unusable buffer. So it's a much larger buffer than would be required by code, but as is, this rear property will just remain undeveloped, I would predict, for the lifespan of this plan and all of us in this room. So, Center Ridge Road is the main commercial corridor of the city. One of our recent master plan's recommendations was to improve some underutilized areas along Center Ridge Road through zoning updates. Specifically, one of the recommendations cites split zoning as a condition that limits the development potential of commercial corridors. So I think this parcel and others like it in the city are really a good example of that situation. The parcel itself is very narrow and kind of an unusual lot configuration, particularly along the frontage. There's really not much that could be constructed on the commercially zoned portion of the lot. And also keep in mind, commercial accessory uses wouldn't be permitted on the resident. You can't put your parking lot on the residential portion to serve a commercial use because it's commercial accessory use. So if you have to provide access, as in a driveway through the skinny frontage, the lot would support a very small structure where the lot kind of becomes a little bit wider, which is about 360 feet back from the right of way. So in this case, very little land remains upon which to construct a commercial building. So, those parcels in that area, to me, it would make sense to consider rezoning in order to create commercially viable properties. I think it's important when we think about rezoning, we think about in the framework of a master plan and not about one business, but about what is the right land use for this area, so that we're not reacting or responding to a thing, anything in the B3 district. So the whole frontage is B3. So imagine any use of the B3 district could be there. And I think it's appropriate to think of it through that lens, not the business you would like or the business you would not like in that area, to imagine what all those businesses could be. And then to also think about that we do have buffering standards in our zoning code to protect surrounding residential property from commercial uses. And that those buffers are, meant to provide that reasonable transition between residential and commercial property. So I guess that's my commentary on just rezoning generally. For this particular development plan, the applicant's proposing phased construction. The first phase would include the main building, the drive, a parking lot, and then material storage and other site improvements that would include stormwater management that they intend to size for the entire future build-out of the property. The proposed building would be placed 10 feet from the west property line. If this property were to be rezoned, still the neighboring properties would have that split zone scenario, and a portion of the proposed building would abut property zoned R1. Therefore, our code requires a 20-foot setback. The applicant would need to seek a 10-foot building side setback variance from the BZA. So they're aware of that and have made application to BZA for that purpose. Additionally, while there are no required setbacks in our code currently for driveways or parking lots, which is unfortunate, the zoning code does require buffering where commercial use abuts residential district. Residential district in our code is defined as any residentially zoned land or any land with a current residential use. So that could also be a commercial lot with a residential structure on it. And that is the case for the property to the east here. The required buffer is a 10-foot deep area along any adjacent property line, which is required to be improved with landscape plantings to provide screening. The proposed site plan shows pavement that would encroach into that required buffer in several areas, both the east and west side. They're showing a 5-foot asphalt pavement setback from both east and west. So that would be a second variance that they would need to obtain from the Board of Zoning and Building Appeals. At this point on their development plan, no landscape screening is provided along the west property line, where that project abuts partially wooded and vacant land. To the rear of the building, they are showing a dumpster enclosure and bins for landscape materials comprised of concrete barrier walls for containment. On the east property line, the applicant showing a low mound, about a 3-foot mound with giant green arborvitae along the majority of the driveway to provide some screening to the property to the east. Then the drive angles in and the side yard narrows a bit. And so at that point, the applicant's proposing a 5-foot chain link fence heading north, where it appears to terminate between what they're identifying as phase 2 and future phase 3 development areas. I don't think a chain link fence really would meet our definition of screening. I would recommend a minimum of 6 feet and something of solid material such as wood or vinyl at a minimum. One curb cut is proposed, and that curb cut is struggling to fit in this narrow width of this property, but it does meet the required width despite the narrow frontage. There is sufficient parking provided based upon the fact the applicants indicated that they have a certain number of employees and they don't expect to have any retail sales or any customer traffic. It will be employees only at the site. They have indicated that the only lighting to be provided will be on the building itself, so no poles, no parking lot lighting of any kind, and that they're aware that they can only install full cutoff fixtures and cannot have light bleed onto adjacent residential property lines. So that wraps up my zoning review, but I know our city engineer has more.
Yeah, go ahead, Christina.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. In engineering's preliminary review, it is noted that they have a new water line service. They have a connection available with an existing sanitary sewer, which I imagine there's a corresponding easement. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to find it in our record, so I would ask the owner to provide the easement on the existing sanitary sewer. Additionally, the storm sewer discharge looks like a proposed easement through the neighbor to the west. Again, I would ask for a copy of the easement with that as well. During the engineering review, I did note, it was noted that the assistant fire chief did make mention of the fire protection and the access to the fire hydrant itself. So I noticed on the plot plan it did not have the existing fire hydrants located. So again, I would ask that on the more detailed plan, you show the existing hydrants and the setback to the building, providing that 300 feet. Otherwise, a hydrant will be necessary on the improvement plans. Also, there was some tree clearing that was performed without engineering approval, and the area is suspect to be wet because it was heavily wooded and is near the French Creek drainage course. So we did ask for an environmental report to be submitted prior to issuing any final approval to see if there's any mitigation that might need to be warranted. And we'll perform the final engineering approval upon site grading and utility final plans. And that concludes my report. Thank you.
Okay, is that it for the administration? All right, the applicant, go ahead, Aaron, if you want to state your name and address for the record and tell us a little bit about the project.
Aaron Appel, Bramhall Engineering, 801 Moore Road, Avon, Ohio. I also have Kevin Yerg here and Aaron Russ, landowner. So I guess maybe addressing a few of the comments from staff. The fencing will be vinyl. We will make that change to the plot plan. Fire department did ask for a hydrant, so we did add a 6-inch line and a hydrant to the plan. So that is shown, but we'll add the existing hydrant on Center Ridge as well and add the easement information as well for the sanitary. Let's see here. Yeah, as staff mentioned, this is a phase project. Phase 1 includes initial 9,000 square foot building and parking area, landscape storage. Stormwater management would be installed for the entire development at the initial construction and would be sized for ultimate build-out. We know that we'll have to come back for phase 2 when that time comes, but right now we're asking for approval for phase 1.
Okay. Is it possible, just so exactly what the use of this facility is going to be? I don't know if the owner wants to just let everybody know.
Good evening. Aaron Ross, property owner and owner of ProCare WeCare,
Address?
34303 Mills Road, North Ridgeville, Ohio.
Okay.
So momentarily, we are leasing a building on Mills Road. And with all the equipment and everything that we have, it's no more room for us over there, and it's no room to expand that property. And the reason of building this 9,000 square foot building is to be able to pretty much to have all our equipment, trucks, trailers, and all the landscape equipment what we had for the past 18 years to have all under one roof. Definitely it's not gonna be open to public. We would like to have the area for storage of loose material, what we are using on the daily basis for all our project and contracts. But other than that, besides employees walking in and out of that yard and just a delivery truck for loose materials drop off, it will be definitely no other access from public there.
Okay, what would be the hours that people are coming and going from this facility?
Like employees?
Well, yeah, because that would be pretty much all
Oh
that
yeah,
it's.
like during the winter months, we are completely closed. Like from December 15th till March 1st, it's gonna be no operation of any kind. We are not into snow plowing business at all. So our season pretty much starts with the first week of March, weather permitting, till mid-December. Monday to Friday, 7:30 to 6 o'clock, weather permitting.
Okay.
Sometimes when season starts, it might be some Saturdays, like 7:30 to, like either 8 o'clock to 2:30, 3 o'clock, but definitely no Sundays and no holidays.
Okay. Is anybody from the general audience have any questions or comments on this? Go ahead, go to the podium, state your name and address for the record.
My name is Frank Nels, and I live at 6502 Ridge Plaza Drive here in North Ridgeville. I'm here representing a lot of the neighborhood with what we have going on in our backyards. So I moved here in 2008. We spent countless hours of money in our backyard. We're a family that spends a lot of time in their backyard, just as does the other residents that butt up to this property. Excuse me. We live a quarter of a mile away from Center Ridge Road. Never imagined having a mini industrial park in our backyard. It's caused a lot of stress for us, and we're dealing with it as a neighborhood together. We're not sure how much more our yard is going to be flooded, how much more water access is going to go in. And as of right now, I see he's already dumping asphalt grindings on the property without any kind of hub stakes or engineer stakes involved. We're also concerned about all the rotting mulch, the rotting glass clippings, any diesel fumes, and dust from the materials. Most of the residents have pools, and we're concerned with any of the dusts, being able to have people over without smelling any of the rotting material that's going in. Not sure with the phases going in on how a retaining pond is in the third phase when we're worried about water coming in our yard. I know that there's a catch basin or what have it, but how can we guarantee that phase 1 construction is not going to put all the water in our backyard? Are we going to guarantee us it's not going to drop the value of our homes. I just had my home appraised for a home equity loan and appraised at 296.7. So when this business goes in my backyard, what's my house value gonna drop to? Because who's gonna wanna buy a house when there's a business in the backyard? We're worried about any kind of noise and any kind of air pollution that goes on. Also, anybody that builds buildings like this, we all know, doesn't just use it a few months a year. Me, I own a business. I know I'm at my shop year-round. I own a masonry company. Even though I don't work in the winter, I'm still at my shop doing stuff and preparing for the next season. Speaking of the lights on the building, they say dim lights. When I hear dim lights, I think of an Amish candle. Not sure what a dim security light really is, because I've never really seen a dim security light in my life before. Also a little question. So I know that the state has what they call Duncan factor, and there is 7 Duncan factors. I know a year and a half you guys streamlined that to be able to get away from dealing with state rules like that. Number 3 on there, will this essential character of the neighborhood be substantially altered, or will the adjoining properties suffer a substantial detriment if variance is granted? The answer for that's yes. We already know that's gonna happen. And did the property owner purchase a property with the knowledge of already knowing it's zoned residential? The answer is yes. So with all of us, we're just worried what's gonna happen to our properties. We didn't move here and all of us spend all the money on our properties to have this go in our backyards and drop our home values. Those are most of our concerns, and I'm sure that there may be a few other people that want to talk, but those, the water, even when you guys had Center Ridge Road done, our backyard flooded. We had a river going through there. And that was due from the construction of the road. That was May 13th of 21. Literally, I could not walk in the backyard. It was that deep, up to my knee. I know I'm not tall, but are we gonna deal with that again? I don't even know, I know our backyards were a separate lot. When they first decided they wanted to put a development in there in maybe the 80s, it was voted against by the residents on 83. So it ended up being up for sale. One of the neighbors purchased 5 acres of property so no one else could build back there. We don't plan on building anything in our backyards. We just use it to hang out and be quiet. I have videos of our yard during rush hour on a Friday, and it's dead silent. It's all you hear is a bird chirping. So if
Okay.
you guys could help us and not vote for this, I mean, and he's already dumping stuff on there, and I'm not sure how that's legal.
Well, we don't need to repeat stuff. So
Yeah, okay.
one quick
Sorry.
follow-up question.
Yeah.
You said something about a dunk,
The Duncan factor?
I have no idea what that is.
What the state did is they make sure that the citizens of the communities are safe from zoning changes.
Mr. Chair,
Go ahead.
I can illuminate. Duncan factors are standards that boards of zoning appeal use when considering variances. So that's based upon case law that have been supported by court determinations over the years. So Duncan factors have no bearing in terms of planning commission judgments of rezonings or development plans, but they do when it comes to BZA's considering variances.
Perfect, thank you.
Yep.
Mr.
Okay,
Chairman,
is there-
those will be considered when they come for variances, so that's where they're, when they come for a variance in front of the BZA, that's when those factors are considered,
Okay.
you're correct.
If you guys could all look out for us citizens, we'd appreciate it very much.
Okay, is there anybody else in the general audience who has questions or comments? Go ahead, state your name and address for the record.
My name's Kathleen Cornelius. I live at 6514 Ridge Plaza Drive for the last 37 years. I agree with Mr. Nels. He's sort of hit every topic I would have. But as to the rain and the draining, my yard I always had a wet backyard. And I bought a 190-foot lot originally, and we bought more property behind us. And now, when it rains, I can't even use the yard. I have dogs, they can't go out. I have children, grandchildren there, and that's the issue for me. The other thing is, I have asthma, and I don't particularly want to have landscaping material so close to my house or my backyard. In the summertime, I'm in the backyard a lot. I have an in-ground pool. Is there gonna be dusting and garbage in my pool that I'm gonna have to be concerned with? The noise factor. And I don't think a vinyl fence is exactly what we need to have a barrier. I'd like to see something more like a concrete barrier that's at least 9 feet tall, so we don't have to put up with this. I mean, it's crazy. I just don't know how North Ridgeville looks out for the people of the city. It's great to expand and bring businesses to the city, but I don't know that you actually take enough care to realize what you're doing to the residents. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else have any questions or comments? Okay, hearing none. So if the applicant, I have some follow-up questions from the general audience. Just for clarification, the retention basin will be sized for all 3 phases and will be built at day 1, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. As far as discussions on rotting mulch, air pollution, and noise, does the applicant maybe want to discuss how that, as operations, how that will affect those?
So definitely it's gonna be not a dump site. The only loose material, what we would like to store on the property is just not even more than 100 yards of mulch at a time. When mulch season start, like right now, around Memorial Day weekend until 4th of July. Once 4th of July passes, it's gonna be probably less than 10, 20 yards just for touch-up jobs regarding mulch on the property. Other than that, the only other loose material what we would like to have for our hardscape projects are gonna be just 304 limestone, river rocks, and pretty much sand.
Okay, and then this is all your trucks are all on paved roads, correct?
Yes.
What about your where you're storing all your raw materials? Is that I'm assuming Jersey barricades with some type of aggregate bottom, or what does that look like?
Yes.
Okay. So as far as dust, I mean, you're on paved roads.
It's a paved, yeah,
Okay, so the dust will be minimal.
super minimal, yes.
Right, noise factor, you'll be obeying the city noise ordinance?
Yeah, 100%. And noise is gonna be 1 hour in the morning when everybody leaves,
Okay,
and it's gonna be 1 hour in the afternoon when all 4 crews are just finishing up the day.
okay.
So pretty much between 9 and 3, 9 and 4 during the day, it's gonna be nobody on the property.
And then as far as lights, this is just security down lighting that's washing the building, correct?
Pretty much.
There's no parking lot lighting?
No.
Okay.
Just security lighting.
I guess this would be a question for the engineer. How close are these homes?
So there is a property to the east of us that would be a significant buffer to Ridge, the name of the driveway there, Ridge, to the public roadway to the east.
So the,
Over 200 feet from
Okay,
the back
that's-
of those properties.
that's what I was
to
roughly
to
scaling.
Our east line.
okay. And then there was some discussion about some initial tree clearing that happened without permits, some dumping of asphalt grindings. Okay.
So we,
Kevin, state your name and address for the
Kevin
record.
Uri, KMU Truck and Excavating, 4436 Center Road. I put in construction drive off the road 1s and 2s, and I did asphalt grindings to start the tree clearing. And that was my bad for doing the tree clearing without, talked to Christina, we've talked about that. But we did have the trees cleared. I do have a study from ACW, or a letter of ACW came and walked the land before we cleared it. So I do have that letter. I thought I sent it to you before, but I guess I owe that to you.
So You had, so an environmental consultant came out and
Yes.
identified no wetlands?
Yes,
Okay. You said that was HZW?
HCW,
Right.
yes.
Okay. Okay. I already closed the, all right, go on. One more quick question now.
So I had the.
Please come up to this podium.
Frank Nell, 6502 Ridge Plaza Drive. So I had the building department take pictures of the property yesterday, and there was no asphalt dumped. As we drove by and looked today, there is asphalt dumped. So they're already trying to change the grade on the property.
Well,
Mike from building department has the pictures, and then I have pictures from today.
that's
So
fine, but I mean, they just testified that that was.
the tree clearing was done in January, so that's when the alleged asphalt grindings and ones and twos were put down. Tree clearing was not done today or yesterday.
Okay, I mean, well, unfortunately, we're not a enforcement board, so. All right, any questions or comments from the commission? Go ahead.
Mr. Chairman, when the commission gets ready to vote on this, I would ask that you vote on the rezoning first. I think that might be dispositive of other issues.
Thank you.
Should we be discussing the rezoning first?
You can discuss it in either order, but when you get ready to vote, take that issue.
Okay. So I'm a little confused. There's a, you've got a vegetation buffer on the east side. I guess that runs next to that Victorian house. Somebody want to?
That's up near the entrance?
By the entrance, there's a,
Are you able to pull up the site plan?
Site plan? Yeah, we'll pull it up.
I had to pull up Google Maps to try to figure out
Thank you.
what was around you. So there's a house right next door to where your driveway is gonna go with, I don't know how close that actually is. Even though the driveway bends around it, it's still, I mean, what are we talking there? It's 40 feet away or something?
Yeah, the front portion of that property is narrow. We did push the driveway as far west as we could to include room for a landscape buffer in that area.
And then I thought I saw giant arborvitaes and every 5 feet or 6 feet or something away from each other.
Correct.
And then, so where does the fence starts on, you're gonna have a fence run the entire length of the property on the opposite side? And then you're gonna have the fence run the length of the property from those arborvitaes on?
Yeah, where the landscape mound ends, and we do not have enough room to put a landscape mound, we would start the fence, and that would head north along that property, at least to the end of phase one.
Okay, and then what about on the west side of the property? Is that gonna be fenced also? On the driveway?
Yeah, there's a gap between the building and the landscape storage.
Remember, if you guys are gonna talk, we need you to come up to the podium, because we are recording it.
So a fence will be provided in any gaps. There's the building on the west side of the property as well as the landscape bins. So a fence would be provided between the building and the landscape bins.
Are you gonna run a fence from Center Ridge Road all the way to where the building is? On the west side? No. Well, I mean, isn't there a responsibility to put a buffer in because this is a residential neighborhood? I mean,
The buffer strip requirements are triggered when it is a commercial use abutting a residential district. So when you kind of look at that peach area,
Right?
that is commercial zone.
I
So
see.
anywhere commercial abuts commercial, there's no buffer required unless there
Okay.
happens to be a house.
I
But
see.
that property to the west is vacant. There's no residential structure. But on the east, even though it's commercially zoned, there's a house.
I see. Okay. Okay. But I mean, the fact that there's a house kicks that in too, is what you're saying. Is that correct?
On the east side, yes.
Okay.
Not on,
But not on the west side,
it
because
doesn't
that's a
require
vacant
a
lot?
buffer on the opposite side. It only if that adjacent boundary is a residential district.
I see. So because there's a vacant lot before you get to the next house,
Right.
then there's no need for, there's no
There's no
requirement.
zoning code requirement.
Okay.
Yes, it's the X's and O's.
Okay.
Is there any other questions or comments from the commission? Go ahead.
Mr. Chairman, as far as the setback of your buildings from the east property line, what is that measurement? I'm struggling to find it here.
On the west property line, it's 10 feet. On the east property line,
46.1?
46, just over 46 feet, I believe.
Okay. I have to admit, I'm not wild about a landscaping business in an area that, quite frankly, the master plan does not recognize, is not something that I think the master plan is looking for, the newly adopted one. And basically, right across the street is the future site of town center. And I'm not sure, a landscaping business there just does not fit within the master plan. I'm having a difficult time with it. And that's my problem. It's just, I've seen landscaping properties in the initial stages, very conscientious, and as time goes along, the conscientiousness tends to disappear. And I wish you would have found another location in North Ridgeville other than this one here.
Is there any other questions or comments? I guess, Tina, could you put up the zoning map again? So I guess, Director Lieber, theoretically, someone could take a road off from the west into the back of this and build like some type of subdivision, couldn't they?
Take a road from the west?
Yeah.
Well, there's French Creek running along there, so I don't think that would really be
It would be,
feasible.
it wouldn't be cost effective.
As one point, there is a bridge crossing French Creek. I wouldn't use it, but there is a bridge there.
I'm
It's
just saying,
from,
I see French Creek and I see that as an obstacle.
Yeah,
Also,
the
I mean,
bridge is off of Beck Street,
okay.
and there is, believe me, I wouldn't use it because it also said not a safe bridge on the sign when I traveled there. But there is a bridge, and I'm looking at this map and I'm trying to figure out why that bridge is there in the first place.
Mr. Chair, I guess I would look at this, is it reasonable to consider a developer is going to find a way of acquiring just rear property and finding a method to access landlocked property? And is it also reasonable to consider that just the commercially zoned portion of this lot has development potential, as I would debate the question of rezoning?
I get, as far as purchasing that additional land to the west just to get this, was that other party ever approached just to try and get it wider so we could get more buffering? No? Okay. Because right now, I mean, I'm looking at this, it seems like we're jamming too much stuff into these lots. I mean, I have issues with drainage. I mean, 5 foot from the parking lot, that's hardly enough room to get swales in. yeah, just we're maximizing, we have pavement up almost all the way up to the property lines. The impervious area is almost 100%. There's hardly any grass area left. Even when it's all said and built out, I mean, this thing's gonna be probably 80% impervious area when it's all said and done. So that's where and I'm struggling with the fact that we're just taking a sliver and into that residential area. So whatever this decision is, it's going to affect the future, because all of a sudden now we're saying, hey, all these parcels on Center Ridge now all of a sudden they're going to be large parcels, and I'm not sure what else. This is Zone B3. What's some of the businesses that could go into Zone B3?
I think if you just look on Center Ridge Road, all those businesses in the vicinity
Okay,
are,
okay. So it's not like interchange businesses then? With the,
it's a wide variety of businesses,
okay,
retail, service, office.
all right. Let's see, is there any other questions or comments from the commission? Is there any last questions or comments from the administration? All right.
Mr. Chairman,
I'm gonna let Bruce go first, and then Aaron, you go next.
one last issue, their intentions are good, but at the same time, they cut down trees without permits. And being in the business, they should have known that permits were required. So I'm just wondering how conscientious they are going to be as neighbors when they're trying to slide through now. Intentional or unintentional, but I got a lot of problems with this business at this location.
Mr. Chair?
Go ahead.
If I could. We don't officially have a tree clearing permit per se, but I do impose the NPDES permit, and any disturbance over an acre does require a SWIP plan, so that's where it lies. So this clearing was over an acre, and that's where I warrant some approval prior to clearing.
I would pose that KMU should know all of these rules. They do a lot of work in North Ridgeville.
I can't speak to
They
that.
do work even in my development.
Go ahead, Aaron.
I would mention, they did get a environmental firm to review wetlands out there. All that is in process. As far as the stormwater management, again, we're gonna improve the drainage on this property, adhere to the city codified ordinances for stormwater management and grading. It is a phased development. We're only asking for phase 1 right now. We do have to come back and seek approval for phase 2. That would be at a later date.
I guess my biggest thing is they didn't try and get the lot bigger, trying to seek additional land further to the west. That would help with buffering, create some natural areas in between. Right now, they're just maximizing this lot to its fullest potential. And I think there's gonna be, there's consequences with drainage. I just don't see how those side swales are gonna go with 5 foot. And to Bruce's point, I know there's even a landscape business on Mills Road. And when it opened day one, it looked good, but now, it's a wreck.
I've got one in my neighborhood, same thing.
So, I have some reservations on this. I truly, honestly do. Okay, is there any other further questions or comments? All right, so I think we're going to start with the rezoning aspect first. And that will be rezoning the rear portion from an R1 to a B3. At this time, the chair will entertain a motion for the zoning only.
Mr. Chairman,
Go ahead.
can I ask a question?
You sure can.
Okay, so The proposal, the master plan proposal includes this area, this general area, as part of the potential town center area? Is this part of that too?
It is, no, this property is not within the town center area.
Okay, okay. Okay, I didn't know of exactly where the line was, whatever, so, thank you.
Sorry for misleading.
No, that's okay.
Okay, the chair is still waiting for a motion. I'll make a motion to accept. Do I have a second?
Is that to, Mr. Chair, is that a motion to recommend?
I'm sorry, yeah, that would be, that motion is an affirmative motion to rezone from a R1 to a B3, correct? Do I have a second?
I'll go ahead and second it.
Okay,
Second.
second. All right, Madam Secretary, please call roll.
Ali,
Yes.
Grotman,
Yes.
Schuman,
No.
Avens,
Yes.
Smolik.
No.
Motion carries 3-2.
Okay. Now we are going to look at the development plan for the commercial business. And with this one, we're going to have a condition that all of the Board of Zoning building appeals with all their variances need to be accepted in order for this approval to take place. Do we have any further discussion on that?
Mr. Chairman?
Go ahead.
We should also add that the fence change, because I believe it was in, correct, and
Okay, so then we're going to add an additional condition for the 6-foot vinyl fence for buffering, and then a fire hydrant for fire protection. Is there any further discussion on that? Okay,
Mr. Chairman,
go ahead.
quite frankly, due to all the variances that are required here and that type of thing, I just want to let you know that I will not be voting to approve.
Okay. All right, is there any other further discussion? Okay, at this time, the chair will entertain a motion. I will make that motion for approval of this development plan with the 4 previously mentioned conditions. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Madam Secretary, please call roll.
Ali,
Yes.
Grotman,
No.
Schuman,
No.
Avens,
No.
Smolik.
No.
Motion fails 4-1.
Is there any other business that's brought before Planning Commission this evening? Hearing none, Planning Commission is adjourned. Good evening, everybody.